He won the NFL MVP in 2020. Now he's on a fantasy football bust list in 2021, talking about Aaron Rodgers and other busts. It's all based on average draft position. These are players who are being drafted too early. We welcome you to the show. This is Fantasy Football Today, and today's episode is presented by Sonos Arc, the premium smart soundbar for TV, movies, music, gaming, and more. Stay tuned for additional details about Sonos Arc later in today's show. Hey, Dave and Heath. Let's go to Heath first. Hey, Heath.
Hey, Adam. It's so great to see you. I have been looking forward to this all day. It feels like I've had to wait even longer than normal.
And Dave, how's the new HQ podcast studio?
It's great. Thanks for asking. Can we hurry this along? I've got preseason games to watch.
Oh, God. Okay. Looking forward to that. All right. So we're going to start with looking at some of the busts that you guys provided for me before the show. Heath has Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. It's all based on ADP. So we'll explain. We'll give context. Leonard Fournette, Adam Thielen, and Kyle Pitts. I should mention, just in case any of you out there aren't aware, ADP, I say it all the time, it's average draft position. It's where these players are being drafted on average. Dave's busts, according to average draft position: Aaron Rodgers, Josh Jacobs, DJ Chark, Tyler Higbee, and in all caps, all Texans before round 10. So the first question is, when I gave you those lists, is there a bust that you disagree with? Dave, do you disagree with any of Heath's? Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Leonard Fournette, Adam Thielen, Kyle Pitts, and where they're going?
I disagree with two of them. I disagree with I agree with the premise of Allen and Herbert. I think they'll be good. I just wouldn't take them where they're getting drafted. I disagree with Thielen at 53 overall. I think that's fine to take. I know he's a little touchdown heavy from last year. There's no question about it, but he's typically a good receiver just in general and someone I wouldn't mind taking in round 5. And the same thing with Kyle Pitts. We're at that point where if he's there and you need a tight end and you want that upside and it's early round 5, I can't fault you for it. I don't think it's a bad pick.
Oh my gosh, Heath, he picked 2. That is so disrespectful. He disagreed with 2 of your busts, man.
I took my glove off and slapped Heath across the face.
Ouch. All right, your response, Heath.
What are other things that ADP could stand for? Like, you clarified that. I was thinking within the context of bust, there are some fun things that ADP could stand for, but like maybe people should email us their things that Adam thought ADP meant.
ADP.
Awesomely delicious pizza.
Awful, dreadful player for today's show.
Ugh.
I was thinking a dumbass pick.
That'll work.
What was the question?
Your response.
Which bust do you think I'm wrong on?
I think the all Texans before round 10 is the one I probably disagree with.
No, wait. Dave, this is why you're not the host. That's not what I wanted Heath to respond to. I wanted Heath to respond to your calling out of the Adam Thielen and Kyle Pitts bust. Like,
he'll do that later. He'll do that when we talk about the bust later.
I think everyone who was listening could tell that Dave's heart was not in either of those. He was just trying to come up with one to disagree with because you asked him to, and he is a good analyst.
No,
he's not taking Kyle Pitts at pick 51. He agrees that he shouldn't be taken there. He doesn't think that Adam Thielen's wide receiver 19. He agrees with these things. He was just trying to help you with your job, and now you made me expose him.
I've got Pitts 56th overall in my PPR rankings. I do have Thielen as my number 21 wide receiver. So you got me there.
Yeah, barely, right. So let's explain those bust picks, Heath. Thielen, 53rd overall. Kyle Pitts, 51st overall.
Yeah. Adam Thielen, had he scored last year at his career touchdown rate, was basically Cole Beasley. And I don't think we should expect him to score at a rate double of his career rate in 2021. I think there is some risk that the Vikings throw less because their pass attempts went up 50 last year and their defense was awful, and now their defense is going to presumably be better. I think there's a bigger risk that Justin Jefferson takes a larger share of the targets this year than he did last year, which leaves Thielen with even fewer targets than he had last year.
Yeah. He was on pace, 16-game pace was 987 yards. It's really not that good. And Dave, you mentioned he's a pretty good receiver, but he's had really most of his games, he's less than 60 yards over the last 2 years. So, I mean, isn't that kind of something that you look at and see a player in decline? I'll just throw this out there, right? I'll be bold and let you guys react to this. Of all the players being drafted in the first 5 rounds, aside from running backs, because they're weird, the player that I think could just be one of the worst picks in fantasy, droppable midway through the season, Adam Thielen has got to be close to the top of the list.
I don't see it that way. I think he's still a fantastic route runner. He was clearly a red zone threat for them. The better that Justin Jefferson does, the more likely he'll be in single coverage. I think Cousins loves him. And I think he can be a very useful number 2 fantasy receiver. Completely see it differently than you guys do.
That is a fun game, Adam. Of all the players inside the top 60, who's the one most likely to be droppable by midseason? And like, as much as I like them, the 2 guys going after Thielen have to be in the discussion, Mike Davis and Myles Gaskin.
Yeah, it's right. I mean, those running backs could,
but
their roles.
like, barring injury, I think there's every bit as much risk for Thielen as there is for those 2 because of the things that I said. His role just wasn't that big. There has not been room for 2 wide receivers at the same time since Mike Zimmer basically, like, I know we've had different offensive coordinators every year. Mike Zimmer's calling the shots on how many times they're going to run and pass, quite obviously. And there's not enough targets there.
Wait, let's explore that, because I thought Diggs and Thielen both had a year where they finished top 12.
That was back when John DeFilippo was calling 600 pass plays, and Mike Zimmer was getting mad at him, and he got fired.
You fired him for it. It's true.
And obviously, both Jefferson and Thielen were top 10 wide receivers, but that's because of the touchdown rate.
Right.
So, okay. All right. Well, Dave Light. All right. I think that's a good discussion there. How about Kyle Pitts at 51st overall? So that's right after Mark Andrews. It's before TJ Hawkinson. It's about 15 picks before TJ Hawkinson. You can't even get on board with him being a round 5 pick.
I hate doing this. Like, the Adam Thielen I can get enthusiastic about. Kyle Pitts is a very special athlete. I am always going to call a player a bust candidate if they have to have the best season ever for a player of their type to justify the ADP. And that's what he has to do for you to break even, is to be the best rookie tight end ever.
Okay, I understand.
That's all it is. I think Kyle Pitts is awesome. I think he's probably going to be very awesome. I took him in a couple dynasty leagues just because I knew this would happen and I wouldn't be able to get him in redraft. I just don't want to draft a player who has to be the best rookie at his position ever just to break even.
How would you feel if he ended the season with 81 targets?
I would throw up in my mouth.
Yeah, that would be a letdown, right?
It would be disgusting.
What about 94 targets?
Probably not worth it.
Are you still throwing up in your mouth?
It's less so. He might score a bunch of touchdowns. I might get lucky.
No, I have gas pains, but I'm not throwing up in my mouth.
Okay, and then the third number I'll throw at you is 109. What if he ended up with 109 targets?
That now we're talking in 17 games.
Now you're not throwing up anymore. Now you're feeling pretty darn good.
No, I would say at 109 targets, we've reached the point where he might be worth a 5th round pick.
Well, so is that what Mark Andrews? Would you think Mark Andrews is going to be around 109 targets? Seems reasonable.
Is that a question for me or for Mandrews fan number 1? I don't know if he'll get to 109 because eventually the other receivers in Baltimore will get healthy.
Man,
the projections.
Good grief! That nothing makes my blood boil more than this idea that Mark Andrews needs all of these receivers that have not done anything close to what he does to be hurt for him to lead his team in targets.
No, I think he actually needs them on the field to be useful.
He doesn't need anything. He's an elite tight end.
He's a very good tight end.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
the numbers that I threw at you. No, let me just finish this point.
Yeah.
The last 5 years in Atlanta, the number 2 most targeted player, 81 targets in 2016, 96, 94, 97. That's 27 through 2019. And then last year, Russell Gage, number 2 in targets in Atlanta's passing game with 109. So no one's been above 109 as the number 2 target getter in the Falcons offense in the last 5 years.
What? Really? So
Calvin Ridley didn't 2 years ago?
2019, Ridley and Julio?
Look it up in 2019.
Okay. I will.
I've got it right here, Adam. I'm seconds away from this information. 2019.
Ridley missed 3 games, I think.
He did.
What's that?
Ridley missed 3 games that year.
Yeah, Ridley only had
93
93. Hooper had 97.
So it's a little bit of a tainted deal, but I think you kind of get the idea that if you're expecting Pitts to get 115, 125 targets over 17 games, really hasn't been a track record of a guy getting that as the number 2 option in the Atlanta offense.
That's terrific, man. I mean, I don't know if that is going to hold true, but that's a great stat, Dave. I'm going to try.
It would be better if the coaches were the same, but I agree.
Yeah, wait, hold on. Hey, all right, Dave.
I'm glad you like it. They also have a tough schedule to begin the year. In the projected strength of schedules that I did, it's the 6th worst for tight ends.
Funny
Not
thing
that
is,
he's a tight end.
You said you're okay with Pitts there, and
I'm okay with if you want to take the chance on Pitts and you want the upside play. That's the kind of move that you make. That's when you have to get Kyle Pitts, to be honest. But I hated it in round 4, early round 5. Okay, I get it.
Yeah. Okay. So listen, hold on one sec. Draft prepping for charity month supporting St. Jude is well underway. Throughout the month, we're going to have various eBay auctions supporting St. Jude, culminating in our draft-a-thon event on September 1st. And we've added a beer with Heath over Zoom. Fun. A spot in the 2021 Fantasy Football Today Podcast League and a custom designed fantasy team logo. Go to cbssports.com/eBay to donate and bid. cbssports.com/eBay. In the interest of moving this along so we can talk about the other busts, Heath, do you disagree with any of Dave's picks? Aaron Rodgers, 37th overall as QB6. Josh Jacobs, RB19, 41st overall. DJ Chark, 81st overall. Tyler Higbee, 105th. And all Texans drafted before round 10.
I'm not sure that you can be a bust with an ADP of 105. I might just disagree with that in theory, although one of mine might have a 105 ADP now that I think about it. No, the only one I would really say I disagree with is the no Texans before round 10. I think Brandon Cooks has done enough throughout his career that he should be drafted before round 10. I think even if it's him and Tyrod Taylor for 17 games, he's going to be worth more than round 10.
Problem is that it won't be him and Tyrod Taylor for more than 17 games. They will eventually hand things over to Davis Mills, who makes me nervous. And when Brandon Cooks was doing that whole boomer bust thing for like 4 straight years, it was Drew Brees. It was Tom Brady. He got to LA. He worked with Jared Goff for a while.
I'm not
Deshaun
sure
Watson
that much
last
better than
year.
Taylor.
Yeah, well, I can't put Tyrod Taylor in that same category by any stretch.
In terms of good, that's one thing. But in terms of passing yards, much more prolific passer than Tyrod Taylor ever has been. It's tough to look at Brandon Cooks and use his career to make a statement about what you expect this year. He's just never been in a situation like this. But just in terms of a guy, you just figure he's going to get peppered with targets on arguably the worst team in football. They're going to have to throw, and he's so much better than everyone else on the team. You don't think, Dave, that he could be worth a top 100 pick?
No.
Certainly going in top 100.
Yeah, I don't know if I've taken him even once.
I think the difficulty is because you mentioned, Adam, that Tyrod Taylor is not a very prolific passer. Well, I don't think he's ever thrown more than like 470 passes. The Texans are so bad. Like, I would presume they're going to throw 600 passes this year, or 550 at least.
Let's do some comparisons. Would you rather have Brandon Cooks or Will Fuller?
Will Fuller.
Yeah, Cooks for sure.
Brandon Cooks or
Jalen Waddle.
Cooks.
Brandon Cooks or
Marvin Jones.
Laviska
Shenault.
Cooks.
Brandon Cooks or Devontae Smith?
Cooks.
Oh, okay. That's where Heath and I are going to fight. But
let's do one more.
Go ahead.
No, go. You got to say your part.
Brandon Cooks or
Olamide Zaccheaus.
I'm looking at the 5.
That's a joke. I'll take Cooks then.
The 5 worst passing offenses in football last year in terms of yards, and I think you could argue there was not one good fantasy receiver on the teams. There, Marquise Brown had a stretch. Ravens, Jets, Patriots, Giants, Eagles. That's bad.
That's
right. The Ravens and the Patriots are probably a bad comp because they're probably not going to run the ball 600 times in Houston or 550 or whatever. Yeah. I mean, they might be that bad.
But in 2019, this cannot be right. What? This can't be right.
Just say
this,
it.
this is right. Yeah, this is right. I
Fake
forgot
A's or
that Roethlisberger got hurt. The Steelers were 31st in passing. The worst passing team in the NFL in 2019 was Washington, and Terry McLaurin was absolutely fantasy relevant. T.Y. Hilton was okay. Jets, Broncos. Yeah, Cortland Sutton was. He was on the fifth worst passing team. Okay, let's move on here. We got some news and notes to get to. We got a lot more busts to talk about. I'm going to tell you about Sonos in just a moment. We also have another fun Arnold Schwarzenegger segment, this time with an audio entry where someone did a great Arnold impression, and you're going to have to tell us what movie it's from. Right now, though, I want to talk about the Sonos Arc. Every single day, I am amazed at the sound quality of the Sonos Arc. Have you gone to Sonos.com yet? Please check it out, Sonos.com, and just check out the products. Now, I've got the Arc, but I know a lot of people have different Sonos products, and they just sound incredible. Listening to music on a Sonos speaker outside at my cousin's house a couple months ago, I was like, this is amazing. And he said, oh, it's a Sonos. I was like, oh, I just got one of those. And then we had a great conversation about how much we love our product. But anyway, it is amazing, and it has changed my TV viewing and my music listening to the point where I don't want to watch TV unless I'm in the family room with the Sonos Arc. That's how good it is. Arc was designed from the inside out for incredibly clear sound and rich bass, and then fine-tuned by Oscar and Grammy-winning producers, mixers, and artists. TruePlay tuning software further enhances your listening experience by optimizing Arc sound for the unique acoustics of the room. And they also have these cool features on the app. They have the speech enhancement mode while you're watching TV and movies to clarify the sound of the human voice. So if a character whispers or the action intensifies, that's the speech enhancement mode. They have the night sound, which tones down the loud effects when you got kids sleeping or somebody like that, or maybe you're like me and your wife falls asleep every time you watch TV together. You turn on the night sound, and the really loud parts don't wake anybody up. So there's a lot of great reasons to get this, but the bottom line is it's just a better viewing and listening experience. Please go to Sonos.com to learn more. Sonos.com, learn more. And I know this is a bust show, guys, but our Sonos segment today, Raising the Bar. We are looking at players who have the potential to raise their game to the next level. And I don't know if you want to play on some of the latest injury news. Chase Claypool, maybe that it's a minor injury. Maybe that opens the door for Juju Smith-Schuster. Maybe you want to go back to your sleepers or your breakouts. But give me some players who could raise the bar, raise their game to the next level. Heath, you got one?
Yeah.
On a bust show. I know. I apologize for
right on time. I think that a guy who could raise his game to the next level is Calvin Ridley, opposite one of my busts, Kyle Pitts. Calvin Ridley could be a top 3 or maybe even the very best fantasy wide receiver. We could see a high volume AJ Brown impersonation, and Ridley's already been awesome.
Yeah, he was 20.1 PPR points per game and 7 without Julio Jones last year. 20.1.
Dave, I'm going to give you a challenge, and I'm going to give you the challenge, and then I'm going to give you a Calvin Ridley stat to give you a little time to think about it.
Sure.
How about a bust from last year that could raise the bar and raise their game to the next level? While you think about that, last year's bust that could bounce back.
Sure.
Jacob Gibbs said that when Julio Jones was not on the field, Calvin Ridley was targeted at a higher rate than any player other than Devontae Adams. So you've got the potential for a guy to be right up there among the league leaders in targets, league leaders in air yards, could have a huge season. Dave, did I give you enough time?
I got somebody for you if you're interested. Clyde Edwards-Elaire, do we consider him a bust from last year?
One of the biggest, yeah.
So I liked what I saw from his offensive line in the first preseason game. The majority of his usage was as if he were an every down back. The one crapola part was that he had like 3 plays in a row on the second drive. Check that. 1, 2, 3, 4 plays in a row on the second drive. And when they finally got to 1st and goal from the 5, it was Darrell Williams in there instead of Clyde Edwards-Elaire. I don't know if Edwards-Elaire would be in there in a regular season game or if he would be in there if Williams had replaced him earlier on the drive and he came back in. But the offensive line in Kansas City, Heath, your front 5 looked good. So I think that he's somebody that does have some decent bounce back potential. I just sure as hell wish that there was no issue in short yardage situations.
I think so. Schrager, write it down. Next week, probably Tuesday, after we recap preseason week 2 on Monday, we got to do the most polarizing players. I think he's the headliner.
Might be.
People really don't know how to feel, well, people do know how they feel about Clyde Edwards-Elaire. He's tough for me, really tough. And I know Heath has a lot to say about that. So Tuesday, most polarizing players, or sometime next week.
Already on the schedule for Wednesday. I love it.
Oh, no way. All right, cool.
Nice. Hey, do I get a player for
you just did.
For the Sonos
You just did.
guy who's going to step up. All right, fine.
EH, but you know what?
Well, that's fine. I'll save my sleepers for later on in the summer.
Okay.
People don't want to know who some
do a
late round
sleeper
targets
show.
are. Never mind.
We should do a sleeper show.
We should do a sleeper show 2 days ago. Yeah. Go ahead, Dave. Give me 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Go.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Sorry, I lost you there in my earpiece. No, I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
You're going to have to wait till another podcast. You had your chance.
Deshaun Watson update. We're starting off our news and notes segment with.
Okay, do you want to hear who it was?
Yes.
I'll tell you another time.
Okay. Does anybody have a Deshaun Watson update? Should we be drafting Deshaun Watson?
He's off my top 200. I think he's been off Heath's for a while, right?
I think it was Chris that was not ranking him at
Okay.
all. He's really close. If he's still on mine, it's not by much.
Right.
I
It
got
sucks.
him exactly at 200 right now.
Right. It sucks because everybody knows how talented he is when he's on the field, but what's going on off the field is gross. And he's not practicing. He's not working as the first team guy for the Texans. That lets you know what the Texans coaches think about his short-term future there.
Yeah.
Even as like a round 15 pick, I think it's a waste.
Okay. Chase Claypool has a minor ankle injury. So they say it's going to be fine. So have we just not done anything in the rankings here?
Nope.
No, not for me.
All right. Brian Flores gave another update on the Dolphins running back situation. He said that the 3 running backs could be used situationally, while at the same time saying that Myles Gaskin could play all 3 downs.
This made me feel better, actually, because he talked about how there are certain situations that are better for using each back. And I would agree that the preseason, when it doesn't count and you don't want anybody to get hurt, is the right situation to use Malcolm Brown. So I think that they made a really good call. And no, in all seriousness, this made me drop Gaskin from like 17 to 22 or 23, but I'm still taking him in round 5.
I just took Chase Edmonds over him. And I
don't like that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I made a mistake, but I understand I wasn't a huge Gaskin fan,
right,
even before preseason week 1. But it was not easy. It wasn't easy. Dave, Chase Edmonds or Gaskin?
I have Gaskin higher as of now. That's an easier decision in 9.5 than it is in full.
How about Javonte Williams or Gaskin?
Still Gaskin. Look, at some point, Brian Flores is going to have to watch the film of that preseason game and realize what the hell he's saying, because Malcolm Brown was terrible.
Right.
And the offensive line wasn't really great either. But you watch Malcolm Brown run, and it looks like you're watching a 18-wheeler backup. And you watch Myles Gaskin run, and it looks like you're watching like a Dodge Challenger go 50 miles an hour. It's an obvious difference between the two. So the sooner that Brian Flores actually like opens up his eyes and goes to look at the players, he'll realize that Gaskin is his guy. He'll be right back to playing over 60% of the snaps every week. No problem.
Okay. The Eagles waived Kerryon Johnson. The Bears have a situation at left tackle. They were hoping for their rookie Tevin Jenkins to be their left tackle, but he's not going to play for a long time. He got his back injury here. Hopefully he can come back at some point this year. Tough break for Tevin Jenkins. They signed former Eagles offensive tackle Jason Peters. This is just a little training camp blurb, a little note from ESPN's Ben Baby, who covers the Bengals. And he said, quote, "Don't look now, but Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow is starting to find his groove." So you could be happy if you already drafted Burrow or if you like Burrow.
That's a turn of the phrase is kind of weird. Like I wish he'd have told me to not look when Joe Burrow was doing bad. I would like to look at him doing good things.
Oh, don't look. Don't look. Just take my word for it. He's doing great. How about Juwan Johnson, Saints tight end?
Yep.
And according to The Athletic, Juwan Johnson seems headed for a Jared Cook type role. What do you make of that, Dave?
If you watch the first preseason game with the Saints and the Ravens, you saw Troutman doing a lot of blocking. He didn't play on any third downs. I think you guys talked about it earlier in the week. If you didn't, now you're hearing about it. Johnson, who was a former receiver, looked pretty smooth when he was running downfield, picked up a couple of big targets from Jameis. And Troutman, like, he still looks a little uncomfortable when he's running his routes. So I'm off the Troutman hype train. I know that I was the captain of it. Maybe I'll be back eventually, but since he's Troutman, you got to throw him back. Get it? Troutman, throw back. Yeah.
And I would just like to add that without an absolutely absurd touchdown rate, which credit to him, he was able to repeat 2 years in a row. The Jared Cook role is not one that we should be targeting for fantasy purposes at all. He averaged 4 targets per game last season.
I didn't take it that literally, though.
Well, but I mean, if he's putting that label on somebody in the Saints offense, and you recognize that it's not the name that you've been hearing for the last 4 months, I think that tells you something about.
No, I mean, I didn't take it as he's going to get 4 targets a game and hopefully score. I took it as this could be the tight end who's the most involved in the passing game.
Right.
But is that really what you think? I mean, is Juwan Johnson really going to be a better fantasy player than Adam Troutman?
I don't know if I'm ready to say that yet. Let's see what kind of work he gets in the next 2 preseason games. But
my guess, and this could be wrong because not like every tight end in Sean Payton's offense. I'm sure that if I scroll back long enough, I can find one that had more than 65 targets. But I'm at 2016.
Jimmy Graham, buddy.
Right. That was a while ago.
Did Fleener ever stay healthy enough to get 65 targets?
Kobe Fleener had 81 targets in 2016. That's still not good enough, though.
Of course.
Like, I think the most likely answer is it probably doesn't matter.
But what if Michael Thomas is out? What if it at least matters while Michael Thomas is out?
My assumption, right. If Jameis Winston wins the job, then that might matter for a little bit, at least in terms of a guy that scores touchdowns. It makes too much sense. As much as Sean Payton loves Taysom Hill, when you don't have your number 1 wide receiver, just put in Taysom Hill and run the option for 4 weeks, go 3-1, and then get Michael Thomas back.
All right.
Listen, the one other thing I need to say is that Marquez Callaway looked outstanding.
He did.
He really, he's another reason why Troutman isn't somebody that you should take in a fantasy.
So I need your rankings here. Where's Troutman? Is he top 12 anymore?
I think I've got him at 12, and he's probably going to be poised to fall even farther than that. But Callaway is a top. He's if he's not a top 100 player for me, he's 109 for me, Callaway. And I think he's got staying power even after Michael Thomas comes back. He looked that good. He's tall, he's lean, he's fast. He ran his routes well. He had good timing with Taysom Hill. I think you could develop that with Jameis as well. I think he's got a really nice role coming in that offense.
I feel like I got suckered into this whole Troutman thing, and then Dave and Jamie are going to drop him before I get a chance to. So I'm moving him right now. He is right around 17th for me, and I don't have any of the Saints receivers other than Michael Thomas in my top 150.
All right, and Seattle wide receiver Dwayne Eskridge is off the PUP list, and now it is time for our Arnold Schwarzenegger challenge. And we have actually an audio submission here.
This doesn't mean we have to do push-ups, does it?
No, it doesn't, but I just want to make sure. Okay, this is from Jake. Just had to make sure I got the right name there. Okay, here you go, guys. You ready? Here is your Arnold Schwarzenegger challenge for the day. Can you name the movie that this quote is from?
I like you, Cindy. I'm going to be hanging around you a lot. Days, nights, weekends, holidays. I'm going to hang out with you until the end of time.
I got it immediately. Borderline top 5. Did make some people's top 5. It's a very good impression, isn't it?
It's a great impression. It seems like it's probably from one of Arnold's lighthearted comedies.
It's not Kindergarten Cop, is it?
It's Kindergarten Cop.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, all right. Good job.
So
Thank
the
you.
mom's name was Cindy?
No, Cindy was like before he got into the kindergarten cop, it was the introduction to Arnold's character, I think. And it was somebody he was following in the mall or something like that. At the very beginning. I don't really think it ended up being central to the plot at all.
So what's going to happen now is that people are going to like bring up random quotes that Schwarzenegger said in some of these movies, and we've got to guess.
I don't know how much longer this segment.
I'm just happy I got one right because I'm terrible at all of these types of games, and now I won't be the only person that didn't get one.
It's funny that you consider it wasn't Kindergarten Cop, was it?
That's right, is what you said. That's right.
All right, here we go. Back to the busts. So Josh Allen, I mean, just seeing him going 16th overall is wild. And he's at QB2 and Herbert's at QB4 and he's going 34th overall.
I think the important thing, because like a lot of times we say, yeah, but it's like, that's not really happening. There's a big split in QB ADP. Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott are going 48 and 49. That's pretty close to where I have them. Jalen Hurts, you can get back at pick 95. It's really just a couple. I don't think Lamar Jackson at 32 is awful. It's a little higher than I would take him. Yeah. But Mahomes is at 10, Allen's at 16, Herbert's at 34. I don't think it's that outlandish to think Josh Allen should be QB2. He's my QB3. But I don't think there's much justification for taking him 16 picks before Lamar Jackson or 33 picks before Dak Prescott. If you look at it just on a per game basis, Dak Prescott's basically been better than Josh Allen each of the last 2 years, and definitely the last 2 years combined. I think it's a coin flip which one of them is going to be better this year. So, which, as we've said many times, whoever is the last of that group of 5 or 6 quarterbacks that goes in round 5, take that one. Right now, it's Dak Prescott. It's definitely not Josh Allen. And this is not an anti-Josh Allen thing. We did this same thing with Patrick Mahomes in 2019, and you would be glad if you listened. We did the same thing with Lamar Jackson last year, and you would be glad if you listened.
Right. I'm about to do it with Aaron Rodgers when we get to my bus.
Yeah, and I just want to say, you know, we have talked about this concept of there's Mahomes, and then there's this group of however many, you know, it's at least 4, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 6 quarterbacks in the next tier. But it's Jackson, and it's Allen, Jackson, Kyler, Prescott for sure. And then maybe some people have Wilson or Herbert, whatever. And we say try to take the last one. Now, look, you can't always do that. But it seems that Josh Allen is just separated from the others. Josh Allen just appears to be in his own tier. So I guess it's like, wait, you know, because the reason why I say you can't always do that is let's say 2 quarterbacks, Mahomes and Allen are off the board. And let's say you're in round 4 or something, or in our drafts, it'd be more like round 5. But okay, I want one of these guys, but they all might be gone by my next pick. Okay, well then pull the trigger and take Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray or Dak, whoever the heck you want. But don't try not to take Josh Allen because it just seems like he's going at least around, if not more than that, earlier than the rest of the tier, and that doesn't really make any sense to us.
And then for Herbert, we don't really consider Herbert part of this tier, and he's going ahead of Kyler Murray and more than a round ahead of Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott. He doesn't have the rushing ability that these guys do. He ran for 5 touchdowns last year. That's probably a sign of regression, not a sign of something that you should expect happening in the future. And the other thing was a lot of his production was based on the fact that the Chargers ran like 100 more plays than you would expect for a team to run in their situation. There's no reason to expect that to carry over because their entire coaching staff has changed. So there's going to be a reduction in volume.
The only nitpick I'll have, Heath, is that I think he does have a chance to get at least 5 rushing touchdowns. All 5 of them were inside the 5. We know that Austin Eckler is not someone that at least the previous coaching staff liked to use in that short yardage range. So they might opt for Herbert a couple of times every few weeks to take that touchdown opportunity.
This is somebody I'm really afraid that I'm not going to have any Justin Herbert. I just don't see myself doing it, and I feel like I'm going to pass up on the next NFL superstar, you know?
To Dave's point, Dak Prescott over like 4 years span now has shown us that some quarterbacks cannot have the 800, 900 rushing yards, but can still give us 5 or 6 rushing touchdowns every year. Mm-hmm. I believe it with Dak now because he's done it for 4 years. I don't believe it with Herbert yet because it's happened once. And now there's a new coaching staff.
Yep, totally understand, but it doesn't take much for he's like 6'6" or something like that. So it doesn't take much for him to just, get that ball and go right over the goal line. I could demonstrate the play to you in this studio if you'd like, gentlemen.
From a non-fantasy perspective, I think this is probably the player I'm most excited to see this year. I just really want to see what happens this year with Herbert, and if he can become the next NFL superstar, one of the faces of football. I think just based on last year, it's possible, but yeah, his ADP is a little rich. All right, David, let's go to.
You call me David. That's usually what I'm called when I'm in trouble.
David Richards.
David Heath Richard.
I wish Heath was my middle name.
Aaron Rodgers, QB 6, 37th overall. I really struggle. I don't know what to make of QB ADP. Depending on what site you go on, it's just so different. Depending on who you're drafting with, it's so different. So let's focus more on the fact that he's QB 6. And what do you think about that with Rodgers?
Yeah, I think it's just way too soon. And the track record that Heath talked about the prior year MVP being hoisted up in fantasy drafts where Mahomes is going crazy and Lamar Jackson the year after his MVP, that was last year, by the way, people took him like crazy. Both of them, be it because of injuries or, just obvious regression, they took a step back. They weren't as good. They weren't worth taking as the number one overall quarterback. And not that Rodgers is going number one overall. Obviously, Justin Herbert is getting drafted ahead of him, for crying out loud. But 29.1 fantasy points per game is what he gave you last year. He did it when his offensive line was healthy and he had a cupcake schedule. And in the years prior, his best year was 21.8. 2019, he averaged 19.9 fantasy points per game. 2018, it was 21.8. He's had some good years in his past. Everybody who's been paying attention to football already knows that. But his receiving core is Devontae Adams, who's a god, and everybody else who's just not that great. The offensive line lost its starting center, or rookies replacing him. The left tackle's coming back from torn ACL. And then the thing that gets me every time I think about taking Aaron Rodgers, and then I go, nah, never mind, is the schedule. Last year, he had games against the NFC South and the AFC South. A lot of weak defenses in there. This year, it's the NFC West. It's the AFC North. He's going to see the Steelers, the Ravens, the Browns. He's going to see the Rams, the Seahawks, Cardinals, 49ers. I don't know how good the Cardinals will be against the pass, but the other teams in that division, I think, will be tough. It's a tougher schedule for him. I think the division that he's in has gotten tougher. And we've seen terrible years from him 2 of the last 3 years. I'm a little nervous about him returning ADP or returning value. Forget about it. This ADP, even at like 55 overall.
Okay, well, so where would you take Aaron Rodgers? He's QB what for you?
He's a top 10 QB. If you want to know the exact spot, I have to actually dial it up in my rankings. He is actually QB 10. And I currently have him ahead of Jalen Hurts, but that was based when Hurts was stinking at the beginning of training camp. I can probably make the case to take Rodgers now. He is, cover your ears if you're a Packers fan or you're an Aaron Rodgers fan, 98th in my PPR overall rankings. So I'm basically not getting Aaron Rodgers is how I have it set up. Kind of like I'm not going to get Brandon Cooks.
No, but
I'm not going to get Aaron Rodgers.
Based on your rankings and based on ADP, you're not going to get any quarterbacks because they all go.
I'll get somebody, and it's going to be at an amazing value.
Really, what we have to look at is he's QB 6. I think that's more important when you look at the quarterback ADP is where are they going within the position. Personally, that's how I feel.
Yeah, I understand that. I would just say that I have him 85th, and according to my rankings, I can get Dak or Russell Wilson at the 4 or 5 turn. I can get I think I can get Jalen Hurts at 95th overall. Like there are definitely quarterbacks in the top 12 that I can get based on my rankings. A point in Dave's favor. And I'll do the same thing I did with Adam Thielen. Aaron Rodgers, in terms of touchdown rate, has been one of the best in NFL history. I think he's tied for second or third right now amongst active quarterbacks with a 6.3% touchdown rate. If he had a 6.3% touchdown rate last year, he would have thrown 15 fewer touchdown passes.
Yes, and he would have been something like QB 10, but that was last year. If he had done that in any other year, if he had done what Heath just said with the touchdown rate,
right,
he still would have had a tremendous season. And most seasons, I think, would have been a top 5 quarterback. I
think if he plays 17 games, he'll probably. I have him 8th. I think if he plays 17 games, there's a decent chance he finishes top 5. I just don't think he'll be differentiated that much from. I think there'll be a bunch of guys in that range.
Right.
Yeah, so let's wrap it up with this thought on Rodgers. 2018, he had a pretty good year. He just had a very low touchdown rate. He was number 9 per game in 4-point, number 11 per game in 6-point. But 4,442 yards, 25 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That's amazing. 2019, though, it seemed like he might be on the downside of his career. I mean, the throws weren't as good. He threw for 4,000 yards. He wasn't even top 12 per game. Do any of us think that that's a realistic outcome, or do we think that 2019, just in terms of his performance, was an outlier? And at the very least, he's still a great player who's going to at least be solid.
I don't think you went back far enough.
Oh, if I go back far enough, it's a case for Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
No, if you look at efficiency, Aaron Rodgers has a career 103.9 passer rating. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Last year was the second time since 2014 that his passer rating was over 100. He has a career 7.8 yards per attempt. Last year was the first time since 2014 that his yards per attempt were over 7.4.
But he was the number 1 quarterback in 2016. He was
throwing the ball 600 times.
I think, I don't know. I mean, I think people count out Aaron Rodgers. All right.
I'm not counting him out. I'm saying it wasn't a 1 or 2 year thing where the efficiency, like he had that stretch where he was the best quarterback every single year for like 5 years.
I made that clear.
He had a 5-year stretch where his efficiency was not at that level.
But at the same time, I made that clear. Like, it's not like he was number 1, but he was still top 12 per game. He was still, really good, solid. That's all I'm saying.
That's what we think he is now.
Right. That's what I'm saying. We don't think that he's going to revert back to 2019, where he had a pretty bad year, you could have to say.
I think it's more likely that he repeats 2019 than that he repeats 2020.
Yes. I want to be clear. That's not what I'm saying. But I think it's more likely that he repeats 2018, which was solid, than 2019, which was pretty disappointing.
Yeah, 2018 was so weird. Like, I don't think there's a very good chance he's throwing it 597 times.
I guess I'm just looking at the finish,
Right. Yeah, that's why I'm looking at the numbers, and you're looking at the fantasy finish, and it's hard to compare year over year over the last 5 years because the game is changing so rapidly in terms of passing production, and we don't know what to do with last year when everybody scored 25 fantasy points a game.
Yeah, he's also running less every year, so that's another thing to keep in mind. Okay, back to the busts. Let's do this will be fun. Josh Jacobs. This is a Dave bust. He's RB19. He's going 41st overall. And go ahead, Dave. Dave, make your case for Josh Jacobs as a bust.
At least 15 picks sooner than I would take him. I'm worried about the offensive line in Las Vegas now that they've reshuffled it. I actually haven't had the chance to watch whatever offensive line they went with in the preseason game against Seattle. Not sure if it even was the starting offensive line. I know Jacobs didn't play in the game. I know no one played in the game. But just the offseason moves that the Raiders made tell you what they think of Jacobs. They added Kenyon Drake. Jacobs even said himself over the past couple of weeks that Drake is like an X-factor, explosive type of option in the offense. It makes me think that he's the change of pace guy. He might be the passing downs guy. What does that leave for Jacobs? Well, it could leave him in short yardage and goal line work. He did that last year. He wasn't very good at it. Drake was actually better when he was in Arizona. Could be a byproduct of playing with Kyler Murray. Might be something that he's just good at now. And the schedule is going to be tough for them. They open the year against the Ravens. They've got the Steelers right after that. I'm nervous about Josh Jacobs getting the type of opportunities that you're looking for from a fantasy stud. And so him being able to cross into the top 12 in a PPR league doesn't seem likely. Not when he's not getting a lot of targets. I think it's around 3 targets per game. That's what he averaged. I think that he's somebody that's going to disappoint you if you're looking for a very good running back. I think he can be all right, but I think he could also be inconsistent, which is what he was last year. Only 5 games with 15 or more in PPR.
Well, and I think if he does what he did last year, then you'll be very happy if you drafted him in the 4th round.
But he's Adam Thielen.
He's Adam Thielen because he scored too many touchdowns last year.
Yeah, he was saved by touchdhdowns last year.
He had
I think he was saved by just playing 15 games.
1,000 yards.
What did he average? 3.9 yards per carry. It is hard to find a good running back who does that. So, I mean, okay, sorry. I'm not saying Josh Jacobs isn't a good running back, but obviously the offensive line.
He had 1,300 total yards. That's a lot better than Adam Thielen.
I'm just saying that I feel like personally, I know you like Jacobs, but I feel like the arguments you make against Adam Thielen should apply to Josh Jacobs because his touchdown saved him. And he just really didn't. We have to accept the fact. Really didn't have that good of a year. He really didn't have that good of a year. Like, I know that he finished high in fantasy, but it was not a good.
He did not have as good of a year as his fantasy finish indicates. That is a different thing than saying taking him as running back 20 in the 4th round. If he does what he did last year, you're going to be upset.
No, if he does what he does last year.
Even if he does what he did last year with a normal touchdown rate. If he has 1,300 yards and scores 9 touchdowns instead of 12, where you're taking him is perfectly fine.
Absolutely. But I think the problem that Dave has is that Kenyon Drake is there now, and nobody was taking Jacobs off the field last year, really. Jacobs averaged 16 carries per game, basically, when he was healthy.
Booker averaged 5.2 touches per game when Jacobs was active.
I don't actually I think it gets indicated. And it should also say Kenyon Drake left today's practice with an injury. We don't know any specifics on it yet, but that's a possibility. Kenyon Drake has mostly been a backup running back throughout his career. And I kind of view him like as a backup running back. He's a very good one of the best. But I don't think he's the same pedigree as Josh Jacobs, and I don't think he's going to limit Jacobs to fewer than 15 touches per game. This is one where I think it's important to remember that our ADP is a mix of non-PPR and full PPR drafts. In a non-PPR draft, if you're telling me I can get Josh Jacobs in the 4th round, I feel pretty good about that. In a full PPR draft, as I showed during our mock draft last night, he falls to the middle of round 5. I feel pretty good about that. Maybe there's not top 10 upside, or maybe the only top 10 upside that exists is that Josh Jacobs scores a bunch of touchdowns like he did last year. But I do think there's definitely profit room in the 4th round in non-PPR and the 5th round in full PPR. And I don't think outside of Jacobs getting injured, I don't think there's very much risk at that cost either.
He feels safer than like Myles Gaskin, right? Do you guys feel that way?
Yes.
Dave, do you think he's safer than Gaskin?
I'm not sure if I feel that way.
Who would you take, Gaskin or Jacobs?
I have Gaskin ranked higher.
I would take Jacobs. Like, I think you can make the argument for sure that Gaskin has more upside. I'm not sure what the argument would be that Gaskin is safer.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going here. Real quick, Jacobs or Mike Davis?
Jacobs.
I have Davis ahead of Jacobs.
Jacobs or Miles Sanders?
Sanders.
Jacobs.
Let's do a Heath bust here. Leonard Fournette, RB29, 75th overall.
I think Leonard Fournette's the early downs backup running back right now. And Giovanni Bernard just continues to earn rave reviews. So the best case scenario is Ronald Jones gets hurt and Leonard Fournette gets to be the early downs running back. Maybe he could even be Josh Jacobs.
Why do you think he's the backup to Jones?
That's what basically everyone that we've talked to who's been at camp has indicated, that they expect Ronald Jones to be the starter.
He did. Fournette got the first carry.
Yeah.
If
he is the starter, I don't really think Jones or Fournette's very likely to hold on to those touches throughout the entire season. Bruce Arians likes to go back and forth and doesn't often tell you honest things throughout the week about which one is going to be the guy that week.
He probably doesn't know who the guy is.
He doesn't know who's going to mess up first.
So it's out there.
Right. And so I think Fournette's advantage on Ronald Jones is that he's much better in pass protection, and he's a better pass catcher, even if he's not a great pass catcher. Those advantages don't help very much when the team's in love with Giovanni Bernard on passing downs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't think we're going to get much of an argument here at 75 overall for Leonard Fournette as a bust. So that brings us.
I've got him 115th overall.
There you go. But I don't think Ronald Jones should go 75th overall either.
No.
Yeah.
I've got him at 82, so not too far behind.
Okay, DJ Chark, 81st overall for Dave. That is a bust. He's going ahead of Jerry Jeudy, Odell Beckham, and Cortland Sutton. DJ Chark.
I think that the chemistry with Trevor Lawrence and Marvin Jones is there. If you go back and watch the preseason game, their timing is down. Jones made a really spectacular play downfield, and his ADP is even later than Chark's. Shenault is a good short area target. It looks like that's the role that he's going to begin the season with in that offense. Wouldn't surprise me if he ran some deep routes on top of it, but if he's going to be that little short area buddy for Trevor Lawrence to lean on with those quick throws, I think he'll be great. It makes me wonder if Chark should be third in this group, who, you know, he's got big play potential, and I know that Urban Meyer talks about having playmakers on his team all the time, but I don't know if I honestly don't know if he's that much better than Shenault and Marvin Jones so that he goes ahead of them and goes as a round 7 pick. There's a bunch of other receivers that I think I feel better about taking in round 7. And there's other receivers that are available after round 7 that I like at their value better than Chark in round 7. So if you follow my logic there. So I'm nervous about him just in general. He's probably going to be another guy that just falls down in my rankings and is somebody I don't want to draft.
What's his ADP?
I think it was 86th. But here's the thing, Heath. I thought to myself, well, it's probably not that high anymore because now he's injured. So he might not even be a top 100 pick. So I looked since August 10th on NFC, although I guess I should have looked up when his injury was. But I think this is the window. He's still 84th. He's still wide receiver 37.
I have him 81st right now. That being the case, I'm not going to argue against the possibility of DJ Chark being a bust. I think it's certainly possible. Right now, I have them ranked Marvin Jones, then DJ Chark, then Laviska Shenault back to back to back.
Good for you. I mean that, by the way.
But I don't like, this is the range, and Jerry Jeudy belongs in this range, and Jalen Waddle belongs in this range, and Cortland Sutton and Deebo Samuel. This is the range of guys where we're really hopeful, and there is a possibility that they could be 125 target breakout. Maybe not breakout's the right word for Marvin Jones, but you know what I mean. Like, but also there's sitting on your bench, might have to drop them because I have too many guys on a bye that week downside.
Sure. Yep. Okay. And I mean, I say it every time. I'll say it again. 14 or more PPR fantasy points in 6 of the last 23 games for DJ Chark after that first 5-game stretch to start the 2019 season.
Yep. It's a crowded offense now.
Yeah, and that hasn't even been his problem. You know, now it's more crowded.
Now it is.
Yeah. Okay, and that's it for Busts. Good stuff, guys. Thank you. Let's read a few emails here. One of these was actually a tweet from Aaron, who is in a 14-team, 1-quarterback league, just added IDP this year. I have no idea how that should change my approach. Help. Now, I did ask him how many IDPs we're talking about. Let me see if he responded. But we haven't talked about IDP. We will when we do our draft next week, I believe. So what do you think? I don't know when. Actually, I don't know when the draft is. But give some IDP advice real quick.
I think if you're in a league where you only start 3 or 4 individual defensive players, you shouldn't really prioritize them at all. Maybe some of the best defensive linemen you can prioritize because there aren't a lot of guys that you can use at the DL spot who are going to get you big fantasy production from week to week. I'm not even sure if I can name a bunch of DLs that I would be targeting in that type of a format. Once you get to a league like ours where you're starting 9 IDPs, 10 IDPs, you'll look into those defensive linemen. You'll want to get high tackle linebackers, high tackle safeties. Those guys will start to proliferate into drafts probably in round 6, round 7.
Yeah. Another thing I would say is like some leagues, they add IDP and they start by adding 1 IDP player. And if that's the case, I would treat them like kickers. Like because there are more than 12 very, very, very high scoring IDP players. And so even if they score a bunch, like they might all score more than the number 5 tight end, but they're all going to score more than the number 5 tight end. So it doesn't really matter which one you get.
So how many IDPs do you have to have on in your lineup in order to prioritize?
What do you mean by prioritize? What I would say is if you're starting 4, then I would start drafting them in like round 7 or 8. And if you're starting like 8, then I would start looking for them in the round 4 or 5. If you're starting a full defensive lineup, then maybe the very best ones go a little bit earlier.
And it depends on if it's 4 IDPs and they can be any position, then I think what you said, Heath, is too soon. You can wait a little while longer. It's when you've got specifics of, okay, you need to start 2 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, 2 defensive backs, something like that. that's when you have to start thinking about supply and demand. And just so we have it in here, a couple of the defensive linemen that I think are worth taking early on. There's Myles Garrett. Aaron Donald is a stud, of course. Both the Bosa's are good. Chase Young, I think, could be better in his second season.
Are they all defensive linemen, or are they linebackers?
Chase Young, you can use as a defensive lineman on CBS.
Yeah, I always have to keep it in mind. The edge rushers, sometimes they have
Right.
Linebacker eligibility, sometimes defensive end eligibility or defensive lineman.
DeForest Buckner might be in there.
Yeah, defensive line is tough to find, depending on how deep your league is, obviously. Defensive back, on the other hand, there are so many. Defensive backs are like kickers. Now, there are some great ones, but if you play in a league where you have to start multiple defensive backs, a lot of IDPs, I mean, this is a waiver wire. It's like, oh, I'll just find somebody on the waiver wire, get me 7 points or whatever.
Two other real quick ones. Make sure scoring is wild across the board, so don't be an azer. Go read the rules. You need to know how important tackles are relative to big plays. And then one piece of advice that I would say for IDP, I don't think this is going to get implemented in any of my leagues this year, but we need to go away from the 1 point for a tackle, half a point for an assisted tackle. Nobody knows who's scoring that or how they're deciding what is what. And it's just infuriating when you're watching a matchup and you need a certain number of tackles from a player, waiting to see if he's going to get a full tackle or an assisted tackle for a play.
Mm-hmm. And one final thing, it just brings me back to this wonderful moment last year during our podcast league draft. I don't know, maybe about 8 rounds in, and people were criticizing my wide receivers, I think. And I said, hey, we only have to start 2 in this league. And Heath said, what? We only have to start 2 in this league. So I think he's been hanging around me a little bit too long. Didn't read the rules. All right, Kevin Bean is in a full PPR league with 3 keepers. He's keeping Ayuk and Metcalf. Should his last keeper be Myles Gaskin or Mike Davis in round 10? They're both round 10 picks, so it's just who do you like better as a keeper, Gaskin or Davis?
I might change my mind on this one, but I've got Gaskin higher for now.
I change my mind every day on this one. Today is the day that I'm going to go with Myles Gaskin.
This is from Craig. 4 point per passing touchdown league. I drafted Josh Allen as my QB1. Who's a better guy to have on the bench, Trey Lance or Justin Fields?
This is another one where I could see myself changing my tune as we roll along here. It's Lance for now, and I wish we would see Justin Fields playing another preseason game. I know he's got the groin issue, might keep him out of the second week of the preseason. But if he were to go out and look good again like he did against the Dolphins, I would imagine that it would just be a matter of weeks before he would start for the Bears, if not week 1. Lance had that great play to Sherfield. He had a lot of suspect throws. He had a lot of receivers drop passes too. So it was very up and down, but he had a couple of near INTs against Kansas City. So maybe there's a little bit to worry about as a passer here with Lance.
Yeah, I'm going with Fields, and bonus, you can name your team Fields of Dreams. So that's nice.
Just because of him?
Yeah. He's going to be that good.
He looked amazing.
I'd rather
did not look like a rookie at all.
Oh, please. Are you kidding me?
What?
Did you watch that game?
I've watched the coaches film of that game.
First half, he didn't look
he
like
threw some dangerous passes.
He had a play where he threw what should have been interception, and then I don't know if it was the next play, but almost right after he fumbled. We need to call.
Yeah, he was running. He didn't protect the ball. That's fixable.
And then okay, but
how many? Okay, so that was a bad throw. How many other bad throws did he have?
He didn't. The whole team was terrible against the Dolphins' defense until the second half. Until the starters.
What was greater, Justin Fields incompletions or Trey Lance completions?
I know the answer.
Probably Justin Fields incompletions.
By one.
Yep.
Okay, last one here is from Matthew in Texas, where the West begins. You know that, Dave? Where a town where the West begins in Texas.
Is El Paso too far west?
It's got to be El Paso.
Okay,
I'm saying El Paso.
El Paso. Could I have said that? Like that was
pretty sure that the West begins in St. Louis. That's like the gateway to the West. But
that's right. That's a different.
Nah, it's Fort Worth. Yeah, it's like the stockyards. Yep.
All right. The question is: it says, "Dear Pat, Bo, and Cam."
Those are Auburn Tigers.
Those are Auburn Tigers. Who's Pat?
Good call.
Who's Pat?
Oh, I don't remember his last name. I should.
I interviewed him and I don't remember his last name. What the hell was their quarterback? He won the Heisman, right? Or did he not? Pat. Oh man, they had Pat Dye as a coach. What was this guy's name? I think he was
Shermer.
no. 8th pick. 10
Pat from Saturday Night Live.
8th pick in a PPR league. I often see Eckler falling to me at 108 and Keenan Allen at 308. I'm stuck deciding if I want to make it 3 Chargers with Justin Herbert. What do you think about putting 3 players from one team on your squad?
In a PPR league with those 2 guys, I don't mind because I think they'll get a nice amount of targets every week. Throwing Herbert on top of it makes me wonder if you should be doing that in a best ball and not in a redraft.
For sure. Yeah. Pat Sullivan is the quarterback you were looking for, Adam. He won the Heisman in 1971.
I was thinking of Patrick Nix.
Yeah, he did not win the Heisman, I don't believe.
Okay,
Tell us about that interview with Pat Sullivan in 1971.
I don't believe you.
No, Patrick Nix is the one that I must have interviewed. Is the one I interviewed. Yeah. I think he became a Miami. Yeah, he actually was Miami's offensive coordinator at one point. I interviewed him in 2006.
Do you remember?
Doing a story on Auburn. No, I don't remember it well, so I definitely don't think he did. Did you guys answer the questions? Those must be Auburn Heisman winners, by the way, right? So.
Yeah, I don't care about the Justin Herbert thing. I would take him if he was the best quarterback available when I was ready to take a quarterback, and I wouldn't avoid him because of that, but I wouldn't target him unless it was best ball.
More Arnold quotes in the inbox. All right, we'll save those for another day. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will talk to you tomorrow with a mailbag on Fantasy Football Today, and we also will talk to you tomorrow about our poker tournament. Unless, Ben, should we do that now?
Let's wait on that for now.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you about our awesome poker tournament that you can be a part of on tomorrow's show. For Heath Cummings, Dave Richard, and Ben Schrager, I'm Adam Azer. Have a good one.